Halliburton long distance. That's good. Nimhard back up top. Neesmith to Halliburton. Another wide open three-pointer. Brunson. Pass stolen by McConnell. Saw it coming. Beautiful feed ahead to Halliburton. Shot clock at 4. Turner has to pull back. Has to take a contested three. Oh, and it goes in. Topping the extra pass. Shepard a three. That's good. Obi topping a three. Another one. McConnell grabs it. Elliott to Toppin.
Indianapolis, Indiana. We're up 38 points going into the fourth quarter. Are we going to shut it down? Are we going to turn this off? Let's blow the roof off this place. Let's go!
And the Pacers are now 5-0 at home in the playoffs. This one their best performance yet.
Pacer Nation, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, setting the pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and the Indiana Pacers take down the New York Knickerbockers 121-89. And here to talk with me about this dominant victory is Michael J. Facci. Facci, how we doing, brother?
Living life on top of the world. Alex, what we saw today, it was a dominant performance by the Pacers. At one point, they called this the Mother's Day Massacre on ESPN. I mean, that sounds like a horror movie, except we were on the right side of things. So, we're all tied up at 2-2, and it's a whole new series now.
It is a new series, and I tell you what, Facci, this was an interesting game because I wasn't sure how to feel going into Game 4 after the Pacers had just pulled out a tight one in Game 3, winning by just 5 points. I thought, man, they really got to win this game or this series is all but over, going back to the Garden, down 3-1. It just would not feel good. But the Indiana Pacers take care of business, Facci, and they just came out guns a-blazing. This team was hitting everything early on. At one point, they were shooting 70% from the field in the first quarter with like a minute left. And the Knicks were like around 25%. So it was a tale of made baskets versus missed baskets, but it was also a tale of physicality, intensity, attention to detail. Indiana just looked more focused. They looked sharper than New York. And New York looked like they were a team that we kind of saw in the end of the fourth quarter, a team that did not look as fresh. And I think the big reason for that, Facci, is this quick turnaround. We talked about it. It was going to be big, and there's a reason why I think Indiana had a little bit more stamina, energy, that kind of thing. They usually play 8 to 9 guys. The Knicks play about 5 to 6. And I think the wear and tear of the Knicks playing such a short rotation is starting to catch up with them just a little bit.
It really is. And through the first 2 games, people were saying the Knicks are playing Indiana style better than the Pacers. And we knew, hey, this is not what we expected. Like, you thought if this is going to be a higher scoring type of series, this would favor Indiana. And I think now we're starting to see that. The Knicks, they barely even have 7 guys they even trust on this roster, let alone be able to play. And in that first quarter, that was one of the most fun first quarters I've seen. Indiana ended up leading 34-14 after that quarter. 14 points. That is the fewest they've given up in the playoffs. But what's great is that last game in the fourth quarter, they gave up 16. That was the fewest. So we're actually starting to see some Pacers defense. You already touched on that they couldn't miss. Well, they held the Knicks to 6 of 23 shooting in that first quarter. And to put things into a bigger perspective, Jalen Brunson had just 1 point in that first quarter, and their big three, Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo, they combined to shoot 2 of 15 in that quarter. And Josh Hart, the 2 points that he scored, those would be his last points. The 18 rebounds that he had the previous game, well, he would actually only grab 1 more rebound after that first quarter. He finished the game with 2 points and 3 rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give the Pacers defense a lot of credit here. They came out ready to play. And I think Rick Carlisle pregame talked about how this team has learned from their experiences all season long, not being at that high of a level, of a compete level. Excuse me, I'm tripping over my words here, but the compete level was not high for Indiana, and he talked about that. And then you kind of saw it today. They brought the intensity from start to finish. Usually, when you see the Pacers get up big early, they allow teams to kind of creep back in. And I thought we might be seeing what happened in game 3 against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Pacers get it big in the first quarter, but then they let Milwaukee just keep chipping away and getting back into it. But no, they kept their foot down and they never let New York get into it. I will say this, in that first quarter, though, it just was the icing on the cake. When Jericho Sims gets the ball with about 21 seconds left on the shot clock and does not know what to do when he's standing behind the half-court line and just kind of waits and waits and waits and finally makes a pass as the 8-second call is made. And so I'm thinking to myself, everything is just going the Pacers' way right now. But you have to talk about how slow New York looked on their rotations defensively. I don't know how many times the Pacers got open looks at the basket. It wasn't even like the shots they were taking were that difficult sometimes. Indiana's ball movement just had New York on their heels, and they did a great job. I mean, I don't know how many times Tyrese Halliburton was left open for 3 in the first quarter, but it was just surprising. I felt like New York, they just looked a step slow tonight on both sides of the court, and I think their 89 points is kind of a reflection of that.
It really is. I mean, they looked sluggish in this game. I think that you could see, I've said it before, the Knicks are so much better at home. That crowd really gave them a lot of energy and juice. And I just feel like the Pacers, right now, we got to put this in perspective. Indiana is the only undefeated team at home in the playoffs remaining.
Say that again?
The only undefeated team at home in the playoffs. You can't just come at a Gamebridge expecting to walk out with a win. It's a big mistake. And right now, I think that in that first quarter, the Pacers set the tone. The bench that we talked about, that was downright putrid last game. 14 points in game 1. Alex, they had 17 in the first quarter. When TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin came into that game, you felt the spark, and all of a sudden the Pacers were off and running. In this game, the Knicks led 2-0. After that, they were never a threat again. Indiana just kept running and running. They built a very big lead that I just felt like every player was doing their part. You had Turner in the first quarter, he had a couple blocks. He had a couple makes. It's just Halliburton, where he touched on. He had 8 points in the first quarter. They set the tone, and New York's big three, they were nowhere to be found in this game. And Indiana just never let their foot off the gas. You mentioned before, we were worried about could the Knicks come and chip away. Pretty much everybody on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want to say, everyone was like, I've watched this team all year. I don't feel safe with this lead. No matter how big it got, everybody was still cautious. But in the end, the Pacers didn't let us down. They kept that foot down on that gas, full throttle, and this was one of the most fun games that I have watched in some time. And in terms of needing a big win, I felt like this was the biggest win in quite some time in a meaningful manner.
What really made it exciting for me was the way that the Pacers just came out and never took their foot off the gas, specifically knowing that if you lose this game, it's pretty much done. It's done's over the series. And I felt like there was so many national people just saying Knicks in 5, especially after game 1. Like, I saw so many Knicks fans in my mentions on YouTube videos saying, oh, Knicks in 4, Knicks in 5, Pacers got nothing on them. I think the Pacers got a nice wake-up call with those first 2 losses on the road.
Yep.
And they responded well at home. You talked about it. They're the only team in the playoffs not to lose at home. They haven't lost a home game in 55 days, Fachi. This team is on a totally different level right now. And what you can say, too, is like last game, the bench had 14 points. And we thought to ourselves, that's not normal. We're not used to seeing the bench play like that. Well, this game, the bench was incredible in the first half. They had 27 points at halftime. The starters for New York had 29.
Nope.
They literally were only 2 points less than New York starters at the half. So you knew a bounce back game was going to come from the bench. And TJ McConnell answered the bell. Obi Toppin was great again, as we've seen throughout the majority of this playoffs. Like, his play has been really good. And then I felt Isaiah Jackson got in there. 10 points, 6 rebounds. I mean, pretty solid game from him. And then you saw Ben Shepherd, his defensive energy, just the way he plays defense is so real fun to watch. And we're not even talking about the starters yet, and we'll get to them in a second, but I just love the way this bench came in and said, you know what, we had a bad game last game. We're not letting that happen again. We're bringing it. We're setting the pace. We're setting the edge, and we're going to do it because we are better than that bench, because that bench is mostly starters with a few different guys sprinkled in, and we can't get outplayed by them again.
what a game when the bench is leading off, this episode for the most part. It's just they really were huge in this game, and just the Knicks are starting to look at this. I mean, they in halftime, I mean, they came out with a totally different adjustment. Deuce McBride started. It just looked like the starters. There was whispers of, are they even really going to play the second half? I mean, Indiana was up big, and I just felt that this was a collective team effort. All year we've said this is a deep Pacers team, but like, who could you count on when you really need it? And I felt like just tonight, everybody brought it. Everybody brought it. You knew Halliburton was hurting. You knew he was. He brought it. He set the tone. And one thing that I want to touch on real quick is, game one, people were laughing at Halliburton. Oh my God, yeah, you know what? Him versus Brunson, that's not even close. Well, you know what? Things have actually changed pretty quickly. And now in this series, I got the stats right in front of me. Tyrese Halliburton versus Jalen Brunson. This is what Brunson's averaging. 29 points per game, just under 3 rebounds, 5.5 assists. He's doing it on 47% shooting and 28% from 3. Good. Halliburton, 24 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 7.3 assists. That leads every player in the playoffs. He's averaging almost 2.5 steals, 53% shooting, and 45% from 3. I'm sorry, but if you do one of those blind things, you player A versus player B, I think a lot of guys are probably taking Tyrese Halliburton. And right now, it just shows that this man's confidence, it's sky high right now. He's got injuries. He's not complaining. He's going through it and just giving you everything he's got. And I couldn't be more proud to say that's our franchise player. He is very special. He is amongst the league's elite, and he's only getting better.
Yeah, I mean, this is Tyrese Halliburton's real chance to prove to everybody how special he is. And we've been talking about the injuries, and I know that we've talked about, he's still dealing with the hamstring, this, that, and that. But I did say several times on this podcast, like, we cannot give him an excuse for poor play. If he's playing and he's dealing with stuff, tough. You're going to get criticized like you're not injured. That's just the way it is. And I love his mentality, his approach to the game, basically saying, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to be playing in this game. I don't care how bad my tailbone is bruised. I don't care how bad my ankle is twisted. I'll say tonight, his ankle didn't look that bad. It looked like he got the right treatment, was able to play through it. Hamstring didn't look bad. I mean, obviously, when you're in a game that's this lopsided for the majority of it, you don't have to worry about it, right? But still, just the way he was moving, the way he was shooting the basketball, like, he really has embraced putting this team on his back. And I think you're slowly starting to see him kind of emerge as this star that can lead a team to some special play. And everybody said it. How many times do we hear this? And I mean, we even probably hinted at it a little bit. Can the Pacers play their pace in the playoffs? Everybody said, oh, it slows down. They can't do it. They won't be able to play their pace. You can't play that fast in the playoffs. Well, they have been able to. Mm-hmm. They've been able to do it in all 4 games of this series. They did it in about 4 games of the 6 against the Bucks. The Bucks did a good job in a couple of those games kind of controlling the pace. But I'm just saying, Indiana, 8 out of 10 games has really been able to kind of play their pace and set the tone that way. And I think that because they're able to do that, it's proving this identity that they have is working. They have an identity finally. And it is a collection of all these players really finding their role and fitting in. There's not one player that's really stood out outside of Tyrese Halliburton being like that superstar level player. But I felt like in the last 2 games, really going into the fourth quarter and then this game, in the first half mostly, you kind of saw Pascal Siakam take advantage of the OG Anunoby-less New York Knicks with his size advantage. I mean, what an incredible game for him. 7 of 9 in 22 minutes, 14 points. That's what you need from Pascal, especially without OG on the floor. So doesn't look like OG will play in game 5. So I think it's going to be a very different game in game 5. I guarantee you that. But I think that Pascal has got to really continue to look to take advantage of the Knicks' lack of size and see how they can make adjustments to that.
Every time I saw Josh Hart on Siakam, it was barbecue chicken. It really, that man cannot guard him. He is giving up way too much height, and I don't know, the Knicks, they don't have an answer for Pascal Siakam. If the Pacers want to continuously feed him, they can get production. So yeah, the 14 points, that's not going to be like, oh my God, Siakam killed it. The man played 22 minutes. No starters' numbers are going to blow you away because they didn't need to have that type of performance. No starter played in the fourth quarter for either team. So right now, we're just seeing a very, very balanced effort. Turner in this game, Turner was 5 for 5. He had 3 blocks. He had 13 points, 5 boards. He would have been on his way to a great game. Aaron Nesmith, we were tough on him in the beginning. We were.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Nesmith was an absolute dog in this game. The 12 rebounds was huge. It looked like that man, it looked like he was attached to Jalen Brunson. And so far, since they've made that switch, with Aaron Nesmith as the primary defender on Jalen Brunson, Brunson is 9 of 27 from the field. It's about 30%. So that is as good as you could possibly ask. I feel that New York hasn't figured out that matchup, but the Pacers have figured something out there that works, and Jalen Brunson has not been the same player the last 2 games since they made that switch. It's been amazing to see. Nesmith has had his struggles, but I just feel like tonight, 4 of 8, made all 4 of his makes inside the three-point land. The 12 rebounds that I mentioned, it was huge, but that defense on Jalen Brunson has, honestly, I don't want to say changed this series, but it's made a major impact in this series in terms of going from down 2-0 to now tied up at 2-2.
Yeah, 2 things I'm going to say about Aaron Nesmith. Number one, you're right. We were hard on him, and especially me. I just said, should he be out there closing minutes, because he's been such a non-threat offensively, and defensively he kept getting lost. But I think the best thing the Pacers did was make him the primary defender on Jalen Brunson, because I think he is a much better on-ball defender than he is an off-ball defender. He likes to bring that physicality, and if he can kind of bring it from the full court press all the way down, you're not going to see the officials call it as much, especially at home. Now, I will say this. I am very nervous about the type of whistle the Pacers will get in Madison Square Garden. I think that you're going to see the officials probably call things a little bit tighter with Aaron Nesmith guarding Jalen Brunson. I just have a feeling that's how it's going to be, and I think Jalen Brunson is going to try to draw more contact on some of those drives than maybe he has in the last 2 games, especially, with his foot being the way that it is. He's going to really have to try to get the Pacers in foul trouble, because even though there was times where Nembhard did a decent job on him in this game when he had to be guard, on that defensive assignment, Nesmith's ability to be able to be physical and not really get the whistle has benefited Indiana in both games 3 and games 4 significantly. And I wonder how you feel about this, but I definitely feel like going back to the Garden, it reminds me a lot of when Victor Oladipo got in early foul trouble against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I forget what game it was, but he got like 3 fouls in the first quarter. And it was this really trying to take away their best on-ball defender, calling things extremely tight for no reason. I can kind of see that happening. And I'm not blaming officiating or anything like that. I just think that they're going to say, you know what? He is fouling. We're going to start calling it a little bit more, specifically now that they're on the road.
Things will be different. Look, the whistle is going to be different. The Knicks play is going to be different. 89 points. They were horrific tonight. They shot 33% from the field, 19% from 3. Things will be different. I think that we saw, and look, I know a lot of people were saying even today, oh my God, the Pacers are getting every call. That's interesting when the Knicks shot 31 free throws and the Pacers shot 8. So I don't think that that's the case. But I do think that, you could see a couple different calls. That crowd in the Garden in Game 5 is going to be very rowdy. And I'm going to put this out there. I got Knicks fans recruiting me to go to the Garden for Game 5 because they're getting desperate right now. They need a win so bad that they're saying, Foch, why don't you come with? I told them, I held to it. I said, I'm not going. I'm not going. It's bigger than me. As much as I want to see a Pacers win, there's too many people counting on me and this Pacers team to be able to get the job done. And if the Pacers can win in Game 5, anything can happen in Game 6. But we know it's going to be tough in Game 5. No OG. I understand. They got to be able to say life goes on. I don't know what the Knicks will do, but I think they might switch things up a little bit. Alec Burks has definitely been someone that's played well for them. And, I expect that the Knicks will make some adjustments. The Pacers need to be able to be that team that we saw tonight, because it can't just be, hey, we're great at home, they're so-so on the road.
Yeah, I think the Knicks actually started things out a little bit different in the second half. I think they went to Miles McBride and pulled Precious Achiuwa out of the starting 5. And the way Alec Burks has been playing, do you think there's a chance they start Alec Burks?
I don't. I think it'd be a little too like out there, but he has been playing good. He's been playing honestly too good. The Pacers can't just let Alec Burks come out of nowhere and be dropping like, whatever it was, 14 points last game, 20 points this game. But I do think that they will make some sort of change because right now they really don't have 7 players that they could trust. But I expect they're going to shake things up a little bit.
One thing I think they'll go back to is I could see them starting McBride over Achua to start the next game potentially. I could see them putting Hartenstein on Pascal Siakam and putting Josh Hart on Miles Turner. That would be one of the wrinkles I think could happen because we saw that happen at the end of game 3, and I thought it actually worked in the favor of the Knicks a little bit because Pascal is a guy that's only going to really shoot corner threes. So if he's shooting long threes, like you're good with that, I think it's going to be harder for him to score over Hartenstein just because of the size disadvantage for Indiana there. But I would like to see how the Pacers would counter that and see how much they would try to attack with Miles in the paint against Josh Hart, a very physical player that would give up a significant size advantage. But I could see them doing that because they did a little bit in game 3. So that is one thing to keep an eye on there for the Knicks adjustments in game 3, game 5. But it's going to be, it's a 3-game series now. That's what we talked about. Everybody, even Pacer fans were like, we're down 2-0. The series is over. And I said, guys, just relax. They can win 2 at home and make this a 3-game series in the final 3. It's very possible. The OG Anunoby injury has been a blessing for Indiana because not having him makes the Knicks incredibly less talented, obviously. But they don't have any margin for error. Like they really have to kind of lock into who they have, and that's about all they can play. And so when you get the performance you're getting from Alec Burks, like that's very unexpected. Nobody's really expecting that. But you probably don't see Jericho Sims if OG Anunoby's playing. No. But I do want to bring this point up, and I want to say it was Kenny on Twitter that does a great job covering the league and things like that. I know he's really involved in 2K. I don't watch a lot of his YouTube videos. I'm sorry. But I know there's a lot of Pacer fans that like his stuff. And he had some great points, Facci, on the Pacers. And I want to play this clip here right now so fans can hear what he had to say, and then I want us to respond to it.
I've been seeing way too many conversations on Twitter about the Pacers. What do you want them to do? They can only play the team in front of them. Should they not be happy that they winning just because Jalen Brunson is injured? Should they not be? Do you want them to win this game by 70 points and go into the locker room, they head down? Well, we didn't beat them when they were healthy. No, your job is to beat the people that are in front of you. Win the basketball game. This is a Pacers team that ain't won a playoff series like a decade before last week. Let them win. Let them be excited about their wins regardless of who's injured and who's not. Y'all, we have gone so far away from the plot when you telling fans that they can't be excited or telling players that they can't be excited because they on a 20-4 run. Because, they best players injured. Cut it out. Because if the roles were reversed, if my Bulls were up on a series or tied in a series, it don't matter who they're going against. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. That's what fandom is. I've never in my lifetime, think about all of the championships that have been won where the opposing team had a bunch of injuries. You can go down every championship, every one. You could somehow put an asterisk next to it. Imagine if fans were like, damn, there was no Kyrie Irving and no Kevin Love in this series. No, I'm taking my win. What? Are you serious? You think Raptors fans is like, no, I can't celebrate because KD and Klay Thompson went down. No, our job is to beat the team in front of us. And the Pacers just did that twice. And these dudes, when they were down, they still kept the same energy. It's not like they just turned it on when they started to win. They've been very boisterous and very outgoing and talking to each other this whole series. That is what hoops is.
Okay, so this isn't a fan of the Chicago Bulls. Doesn't have a dog in the fight. Not a Knicks fan, not a Pacers fan. And he's standing up for the Pacers because everybody is acting like the Pacer fans have no room to celebrate because they've beaten teams that have suffered major injuries. And to me, I couldn't agree with him anymore. I think that it's absolutely absurd the amount of people that are mad the Pacers are beating who's in front of them. They can only play who's in front of them. And I think Pacer fans should be thrilled that they're winning games by how they're winning them too, even when OG Anunoby's out, Julius Randle's out, Giannis is out. They can't control that. The part of the problem is the Bucks, they're a team that doesn't have a lot of depth. And the Knicks, they have some depth, but when you play your guys 45 minutes a game and you trade for injury-prone players, things like that are going to happen.
I just don't understand how we're supposed to apologize for this. I mean, look, Knicks fans are like, yeah, we've got no Randall. Did we injure Julius Randle? Absolutely not. Randall's been out for months. Boyan, he got hurt last series. That has nothing to do with us. Mitchell Robinson was injured for most of the year. I understand OG got hurt. Even going back to the Bucks series, Giannis got hurt in the regular season. That had nothing to do with us. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Request the league that we play someone else? Hey, instead, can we play Boston? You know, we don't think we deserve to play the Knicks given that they're hurt. Like, what are we supposed to do? This franchise is starved for success in the playoffs. It's been 10 long years since the Pacers have really even been relevant outside of that 2017, 2018 year where we lost in the first round. It's just, this is what it is. You play who is in front of you. You have no control over that. I'm not apologizing to anybody. We are thrilled with what we've seen from this team that is ahead of schedule, working their butts off, and we know what we're building over here. For the Knicks, they had a great year. This year's not over. This is a great series right now. But to think that we're supposed to just say things like, oh, we don't really deserve this win, that is ridiculous, because anyone who's a fan of any team puts in so much time, effort, and energy behind this team for the wins and the losses. And I feel like Kiefer Sykes has taken a stray bullet over here. But I remember Kiefer Sykes, obviously, he's our starting point guard. We're still there covering this team after each game saying, well, you know, they did their best tonight. You know, hey, we got the Holiday brothers. You know, all this stuff like this, that we were behind them when they weren't good. What, we're supposed to be quiet when all of a sudden we are good? This team is 2 wins away from the conference finals, and I can say right now, man, I love them. This might be in the moment, but I love this team maybe more than I've ever loved them before right now, because I've seen where we've been and I know where we're going. Man, I'm hyped about this run right now.
Bringing up Kiefer Sykes, I mean, this is a guy that Facci wouldn't even give the keys to the third-string point guard to, ended up becoming the Pacers starter for multiple games. So that was a rough time. And I think, you know, you go back to 2019 when Victor Oladipo had the injury and the Celtics beat us 4-0 in the first round. Do you think the Celtics fans were not celebrating the fact they beat the Pacers in round 1? No. They're like, glad we beat this team. We took advantage of their injuries. You know, Indiana couldn't control that. Giannis didn't play in the series, you know, and things clearly would have been different. I mean, who says that we wouldn't have won the series? Because you never know. And they beat them 4-1 in the regular season with Giannis. I mean, I understand that Giannis is a great player. Don't get me wrong, but like, Dame's a good player. Chris Middleton's a good player. They have good players on their team still, and it kind of discredits those guys when you're acting like, oh, that team sucks without this one player. Like, no, you need other players to step up. And yeah, I mean, I get it. New York, I mean, I've heard some people say, you know, the Knicks wouldn't even be as good if Julius Randle was actually playing in these games because it would take the ball out of Brunson's hands more. So it's like, okay, but now when that doesn't fit your narrative, it's like, well, Julius Randle's been hurt. Oh, okay. Bogdanovich has been hurt. And Bogdanovich is 35 years old. Okay, like this guy's old. And then you look at OG Anunoby, and I like OG Anunoby, and I think he is a game changer. Like you saw what he did in game 2, like fantastic play. How many times has OG Anunoby been injured? Every single season he gets hurt. So when you trade for a guy like that, and you put him on a team with a coach that plays their players 45 minutes each a game, the wear and tear is going to happen. And that was one of those things where it looked more like a wear and tear injury on a guy that shouldn't be dealing with that heavy of minutes than it did a fluke thing. So I'll just say this. The Pacer fans, if you are excited about being 2-2, like this series is not over. It's tied. There's still a lot of series left to be played, and we're not celebrating that. But what we're celebrating is the fact that this Indiana team has come out, defended home court, proven they belong, and this young team is maturing right in front of our eyes. Tyrese Halliburton, this is his first time in the playoffs. Andrew Nembhard, first time in the playoffs. Aaron Nesmith, his first time having a significant role in the playoffs. Miles Turner's first playoff series victory. Pascal Siakam, obviously, been there, done that. He's one of the exceptions. TJ McConnell, he's a guy that really hasn't had a lot of winning in his resume. Ben Shepherd, rookie, never been there before, never done that. Isaiah Jackson, never been there before, never done that. Obi Toppin had a limited role with the Knicks before. They've won a series with him, but like he's having a bigger role now. So you talk about this team, like half the roster is a very young, inexperienced playoff team that are getting this chance to prove who they are, and they shouldn't be discredited because they're beating teams that are dealing with injuries. That's the nature of the game. And anybody that wants to discredit Indiana for what they're doing, don't listen to them. Don't give them the attention because the Pacers are taking care of business and they deserve every bit of praise for how they're handling their business and being in the spot that they've been in. And kudos to the coaching staff for having this team ready to play. Front office did a great job building a deep roster the coaching staff trust. And all these 9 players that have played in the series have had their moments where it looks like, okay, they belong. They don't deserve to not be able to like not play in the series. Like they're getting this playing time because they've earned it, Facci. So I know I went on a long rant there, but just how I feel.
Oh, you're right to feel that way. I mean, this team was built like a game of chess. It's just one move after another. I mean, a lot of this team is, you can make an argument, kind of castaways from other teams where, you got a TJ McConnell that signed with us a couple of years ago, and there's low expectations coming over from Philly. He's worked his way up. I mean, Aaron Nesmith was the butt of many jokes on Twitter. Oh, wow, the Celtics gave up like a paper clip and a ball string or whatever for Nesmith. He's playing huge minutes right now just for this team. Siakam, the Pacers push the chips in. They found someone they felt fit, that missing piece to be able to go after. Tyrese Halliburton, you traded your franchise player in Sabonis for Halliburton. You went for it. You struck gold. Andrew Nembhard, you got in the second round. I mean, Turner's the guy that stuck with you all this time. Obi, you traded 2 second-round picks for. It's just like this team was just built the right way, and we have every right to be absolutely thrilled about what we're seeing right now, because we're going punch for punch with the Knicks right now in a time where everybody counted us out. Everybody. I mean, Knicks fans, I'm telling you right now, they were so loud in games 1 and 2 in terms of, looking past us, we want Boston, Knicks in 4. I can't find them right now. I don't know where they are. I'm looking for them. They're so quiet. It's crazy. And this is just the best part of being a fan, is those highs and lows. You stick with the team. You don't get too down when it feels like the world's collapsing or anything. This team, they were good enough to win game 1 and game 2. They were. I've moved on. It's just what's happened. You're going to deal with these. There's going to be game winners. There's going to be calls that go the other way. All you could do is shake it off and have a quick reset. Miles Turner said the mentality was, let's pretend that we're down 20. That's got to be the mentality. They have to have that mentality. We're sticking together, and that what any lead isn't good enough. We got to pretend that we're down and we're looking to come back. And right now, I just feel that this is a very collective unit from top to bottom that I'm really, really proud of, and I don't want this run to end anytime soon.
Yeah, and I know it's marginal or minimal, whatever you want to call it, but Benedict Mathurin, a key piece of the Pacers bench, and was a starter for part of the season this year. He's been out since March. I think people forget the level of impact that Benedict Mathurin would have had on this team by the diversity he would have brought, being able to kind of be a guy that can create off the dribble, be his own scorer. And I know I've said this before on this podcast, so I'm repeating myself, but I just want to reiterate, Benedict Mathurin is a gamer, and he loves these big moments. And I feel like he would relish in the big moments. He'd be talking trash. He'd be driving to the basket, scoring on guys and flexing, probably getting in scuffles a little bit here and there, because Ben Mathurin is one of the most cocky players, arrogant players I've seen. And if you think this Pacers team is arrogant without Benedict Mathurin, holy cow, you would hate this team even more, because Ben Mathurin does not care what you think, and he's going to let you hear about it. I mean, even in the regular season, he does that. He's always talking trash. He talks trash to his teammates during practice. Nobody can guard Benedict Mathurin, according to Benedict Mathurin. So I'm just saying, I'm just telling you right now, if Ben Mathurin were healthy, I don't care what the analytics say about how bad he is defensively and this, that, and that, he would be having an impact in this series one way or the other. And I think that it would be a positive impact because of his versatility. I keep messing up that word. Diversity, versatility, whatever you want to call it. I just think that the way Benedict Mathurin is as a player, that's a big piece of Pacers missing, because they really don't have that wing type player that can go out there and kind of create their own shot. It's pretty much Pascal Siakam and Tyrese are the only guys you feel super comfortable with that, and then probably TJ McConnell as well. But outside of those 3 guys, you don't have that guy that can really create off the dribble and do a whole ton of stuff. And I would say that Mathurin might be the best isolation scorer on this team. I don't want to say that he necessarily is, but you can make the case for it if you've seen him play one-on-one.
Oh, yeah. I don't even think Knicks fans even know who Benedict Mathurin is. I think they probably think that this is the Pacers team. Everyone's healthy and all that. That's the man that was the anchor of our bench. So, yeah, I mean, you could only imagine how many big shots he would hit at times, how many random games he could go off for 15 to 20 points. You know, that's definitely something that, yeah, we are missing. But it's just kind of funny because in game one, I remember when TJ McConnell was playing well, I heard Knicks fans in Madison Square Garden, this is the best game of his life. It's like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. McConnell is a good player who, even in this game, had 15 points and 10 assists. It's just he's really stepped up. That's his second double-double of the series. He's been kind of like that anchor of the bench. And I just think that right now, there's a time where in the NBA where depth isn't really a thing. You pay about 2 to 3 stars, and that's kind of, you look at what the Phoenix Suns did. 3 stars, no bench. Knicks, no bench. You look at the Pacers right now, and this is a pretty complete team. They're not all 100% there in terms of maybe, you know, NBA title ready, but they got guys that could step in any spot that you need them to and be able to get production out of. And I just feel like on a night like tonight, I mean, you look at, you know, Andrew Nembhard. I feel like had a quiet game. Obviously, he didn't need to do a lot, but he's coming off of hitting a game winner. Halliburton has been rock steady. Turner, the last 2 games, in 3 out of 4 of these games, I think has been awesome. Neesmith, huge on defense, and we already mentioned what he did with the rebounding. Siakam's really picked it up, and I feel that the bench has actually been great. 3 out of 4 games in this series. Yeah. I don't know what more you could ask for out of this Pacers team right now. You just hope, can they be close to that home team on the road? That's the big thing, because like we said, you need 2 more. Well, hey, 2 of these next 3 is going to be in the Garden. You're going to have to win at least 1 road game in this series.
Yeah, and I think if you go back in games 1 and games 2, like the Pacers, they played probably 6 quarters of good basketball, just 8 where they really didn't play great. So, or excuse me, 2 where they didn't really play great of the 8. My math was
We're not math guys,
there, but
all right.
But I felt like for at least like a game and a half, it felt like Indiana was in the game on the road, right? Tonight or this afternoon, the Knicks were never in the game.
Never
once in the 4 quarters of play. And, you know, they got, I think game 3 was really fun. I mean, that was a really fun game, back and forth. I mean, I didn't think Dante DiVincenzo was going to go for 35 points again in this series. I think water kind of found its level, like I've talked about several times this year, like it always does. Josh Hart, he's had some big games, obviously, throughout the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And then you have a game like tonight where maybe you're just asking too much of Josh Hart for what exactly the type of player he actually is. And that's not a knock on him, because I think he's a really good role player. I just don't think he's an all-star level guy, but he's had an all-star level impact at different times in both series. And I just don't think that that's always going to be the case. I mean, they're definitely missing OG Anunoby, but OG Anunoby does not erase the type of victory the Pacers had tonight against the Knicks. And people want to say, well, the Knicks would be winning the series 4 games to 1, 4 games to nothing if OG played. I mean, the Pacers had a chance to win game 1 with OG playing in it for the whole entirety of the game on the road. And even if you go back and look at some of the calls that were missed, you could have said, well, the Pacers still had a chance to actually win the game, or should have won that game had things been called correctly. So, you know, Indiana could make the case that they should be up 3 games to 1. And that's with 1 win coming against a team that was fully healthy for New York. So I don't want to get into all the what could have happened, what could have
I don't want to do it either.
It's 2 games. It is what it is. Pacers have proven that they can take care of home court advantage, or their home court. They've done that in both series now. They've not lost a game at home in the 5 games they played there. So now, like you said, they have to steal this one on the road. They have to really embrace what's ahead of them. It's going to be a hostile environment in Madison Square Garden. The Knicks fans were feeling good after game 1, especially feeling good after game 2 when Jalen Brunson came back. They're probably not feeling too good right now, being down 2 games, or tied 2 games apiece. So it's going to be a lot of nerves in the building for both sides. A big, big pivotal game on Tuesday. But I think Indiana can win this game. But they're going to have to come out very strong, very focused, and they're going to have the mentality that is a winner's mentality, a mentality of, you know what, we've been here before. We let our foot off the gas when we played Milwaukee in Game 5. We got to learn from our mistakes. We're not going to let this happen again. And we saw the Knicks lose a pivotal Game 5 at home against the 76ers last round. So, hey, I wouldn't be upset if we saw some deja vu.
Hey, I wouldn't be upset at all. But going back to your point on Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart, they were both playing out of their mind to start this series. And I wasn't trying to be a hater. One of my old college roommate, diehard Knicks fan, I was talking with him, and I was just like, at some point, DiVincenzo needs to come back down to reality and be the guy that he was in the regular season. I was like, look, he's good. He is. So is Josh Hart. Josh Hart averaged about 9.5 points per game in the regular season. DiVincenzo averaged about 15.5 points per game in the regular season. In this series, DiVincenzo was averaging about 27 points per game at one point. Josh Hart was playing out of his mind. Today, Dante DiVincenzo was a minus 40. It was the worst performance in Knicks playoff history.
Say that again.
The worst performance in Knicks playoff history. He was a minus 40. And look, he's had some crazy moments. It was a bad defensive matchup for, Nesmith guarding him, because I just feel that DiVincenzo real good moving around, being able to get open for just 1 second and be able to hit a three. Ever since he unfortunately took a fall, in that late in that third quarter of, Game 3, he's not been the same player. He scored 17 points in that third quarter. He took that spill. He scored 2 points in that fourth quarter. In this game, he was 3 of 13. I don't know. He's got to be banged up as well. Everybody in this series, if you're playing basketball in the middle of May, you are banged up. Josh Hart, who was having games that we talked about, like near triple-double performances in the beginning of this series. So Game 1, 24 points, 13 boards, 8 assists. Game 2, 19 points, 15 boards, 7 assists. Even Game 3, he had 10 points and 18 rebounds. I'm sorry, but this is not sustainable for a man that is a good role player, but is 6'4". Like, for him to just all of a sudden turn into, what felt like almost like Magic Johnson or something like that. It's like, it's got to come down to reality a little bit. He will be better in Game 5, but it was about time that the Knicks' big three stopped dropping about 25 points each and combining for, a zillion points. Tonight, that group, they combined for 27 points. How about that?
And 29 points. How many
29 points it was. I mean, yeah, I think it was about 29 points. I got it pulled up just to be safe, because I thought it was 27 in the beginning. So you had Brunson with so it was 27 points. I was right the first time.
Who had 27 points? Sorry. The three of them?
Yes.
The Nova Knicks.
The Nova Knicks combined for 27 points. That's what Dante DiVincenzo was averaging by himself. So I think we're seeing some defense out of this Indiana team at the perfect time.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the Pacers' defense has gotten better. I think they've figured out a way to defend New York and defend them effectively. I think that Game 5 is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, because I don't expect the Knicks to shoot this poorly again. They had a bad game. They only scored 89 points. It's kind of similar to how the Pacers bench bounced back after Game 3 to Game 4. You knew they were going to come out and they were going to be much, much better. I think that's going to be the case for the Knicks in Game 5. I think they're going to play a very high level of basketball. They're going to be playing some of their best basketball they probably played in this series, because they know what's at stake. They don't want to go back to Indiana down 3-2. Now, I think they could beat Indiana in Game 6 if they have to, right? They're a talented enough team. They've proven that. If OG comes back and they can find different ways to be a little bit more versatile, they can do that. But I just think Indiana, they have to expect the best punch from New York in Game 5. And we talked about this against the Bucks. Indiana's going to be getting the Bucks' best punch. Can they punch back? Well, no, they got punched in the mouth time and time again, and the Bucks ended up killing the Pacers in Game 5. So I think if you're playing the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, all lights are on you. Everybody's going to be looking. What's going to happen in this game? You know what? Indiana's got to be able to punch back, absorb punches, and really make this a full 12-round fight. They cannot allow themselves to get TKO'd in the first 5 rounds and just looking like a bunch of bums out there like the Knicks did tonight. So that's where I'm at with Indiana. They know what's at stake, and the Halliburton we've seen the last 3 games has to show up once again for Game 5. and the Siakam we saw for the last 2 games, and Neesmith we saw for the last 2 games, that's got to translate to the road for this team to win. But this was a great victory, Facci. I think 13 guys played, 10 of them shot 50% or better from the field. So this is a fun one. Obviously, Pacer fans should be incredibly excited, but also know that it's not over yet. It's tied. There's a lot of series left to be played.
A lot of series left to be played. I did have one complaint. We didn't get James Johnson. The crowd was chanting for him.
Yeah,
and I
not?
loved how the ESPN, they had no idea. Like, what are they chanting? Are they chanting James? Like, what? They had no idea that James Johnson's even on the Pacers. And
Well,
that
they know he's
felt
on
like
there.
what?
Everybody knows James Johnson's on the Pacers.
Yeah, they
He's
know,
the
they know
bodyguard,
that.
baby.
But look, let's get into this officiating crew real quick for a while. These were some New York homers. All right, you got Doris Burke, who's a born and raised New Yorker. Big
You're
time
talking officials or
Knicks fan.
broadcasters?
I'm sorry, I meant the broadcasters.
Okay.
Doris Burke, it's late, guys. You know, this is hours after the game. Doris Burke, big time New York Knicks fan. You got Mike Breeden, who calls games for the Knicks. I mean, even Stephen A. during halftime, huge Knicks fan. It's like they were more talking about what the Knicks were doing wrong compared to what the Pacers were doing right. And I felt like at some point we need to switch that narrative around. Instead of like, is New York in trouble? It's like, how about Indiana's playing really good? And I want to see a little bit of that change. So I'm excited about that. We didn't get to see James Johnson, which I really wanted to. That was the final box I wanted to check. But we got to see a little bit of Jarris Walker. And if you told me that Jarris Walker was going to outscore Josh Hart in this playoff game, I would say there is no doubt that we won that game. And I'm glad that that was the result. We got to pretty much empty the bench, like you mentioned. And it just felt like a celebration tonight. I don't think Game 5 is going to be like that. So buckle up, Pacer Nation.
Buckle up, Pacer Nation. That is correct. And I agree with you. I mean, I tweeted out, I said, based on the broadcast, you would have no idea the Pacers are up by 30 points right now.
You have no idea. None.
I mean, when Alec Burks elbowed Tyrese Halliburton in the face, instead of just saying, you know what, it was an inadvertent thing, you know, it was a normal basketball play, Halliburton just wrong place, wrong time, you know, I thought it was funny. Doris Burke just going to the defense of the Knicks about how that's a great basketball move and you know, it's just a terrible foul by Tyrese. And then JJ Redick said Tyrese Halliburton's face was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think to myself, what are we doing here? Like it felt like, oh, you know, and then whenever Jalen Brunson would make a basket, it was just like, oh, he's got such great footwork. He is so hard to guard. I'm like, the Pacers are up by 25 right now.
At times, I know. I missed me some Denari and Quinn. It was just like, come on, guys. Like we need you back out there. It's just that was the missing ingredient in this game. So Chris, if you're listening to this, hey, I'm sure you had a blast in the stands. Saw you and JJ. Awesome stuff. But we miss you calling the game.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Denari had a beard last time he was on this podcast.
Yep.
I saw him at Game 3 Friday. He had the full beard going. All of a sudden, JJ posts a selfie and he's clean shaven. I'm like, what happened to rough Chris? Where's scruffy Chris at, man? I was wanting to see that full beard come into effect. But you know what? I respect it. Beard or no beard, Chris Denari is the GOAT. And, you know, it's fine if they want to, you know, be more Knicks homer or whatever. I don't really care about the broadcast that much. I just think it's funny that they're kind of angling things a certain way when they commentate. Now, I think Mike Breen was terrific in the final like 3-4 minutes of Game 3. Awesome. Like excellent calls, but in a close game. Wasn't any bias there. But when he said, and the Knicks take another timeout, and if you're reading the scoreboard, it is correct. It was 40-19, and you could feel just the sadness in his voice. And
oh yeah,
I don't know if it's sadness because he's a Knicks guy or if it was just sadness because this game was so boring. Probably not a fun one to broadcast when you just see one team dominate from start to finish.
Probably, but hey, if you're on our side, you had a blast. I mean, I started getting greedy. I said, could we push it to 50? Is it possible? Could we go up 50? And then I started being like, okay, look, you know what? Maybe Jarris Walker can play the whole fourth. I started just really getting ahead of myself. And I just think as fans, we deserve one of these type of performances. This was the Pacers' third biggest playoff win ever. And this was the Knicks' fifth worst playoff loss ever. So this was a historic performance, you know, on both sides. Just the good side tend to be it happened to be for the Pacers, and for that, hey, let's remember this one because these type of wins, they don't come around often.
No, they do not. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up, Facci. The Pacers get a massive victory. Tell everybody where they can find us at on social.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod STP. You can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldenNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPod STP. You can find us on Facebook at Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok, Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. We can find all of our YouTube video content there. And if you're not a YouTube fan, please check us out on the audio content. Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, check those out. Facci, rocking the Setting the Pace merch. It's a great shirt right there. I don't have Setting the Pace merch on, but I do have some old school Pacers merch on here. You know, just felt a little 90s-esque. Pacers Knicks, it just felt right. But anyway, Pacer fans, you know what to do. If you're excited about the Pacers, even in the series at 2 games apiece, and hoping the Pacers can take down the Knickerbockers in the Garden, Game 5, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.